Hello. As we continue through Passion Week, there were two verses that Jesus splices together in Mark. This is, by the way, quite common. I don't think people realize how often the New Testament authors splice together more than one scripture from the Old Testament. This was perfectly fine, and don't take offense when I say this, because the New Testament authors did not primarily think contextually, at least not historically, in a context kind of way. They took all of the words of Scripture as inspired, and sometimes they paid attention to the context of those Scriptures, and at other times they didn't pay so much attention to the context of those Scriptures. And so they were, and I don't mean any offense, they were like charismatics or Pentecostals who just quote memory verses and kind of remove them from the Old Testament and quote them as kind of self-contained words without necessarily paying attention to what their context was. Now, actually, the context of these two verses actually fits what Jesus does when he throws the money changers out of the temple. Their context is relevant. And so even though these verses are spliced together, they have a similar kind of temple context. Well, enough of that. You want the verses, right? So let's look at the Hebrew of Isaiah 56:7 and Jeremiah 7:11, both of which are quoted by Jesus in Mark as he throws the money changers out of the temple. You have heard, my house is supposed to be a house of prayer, but you've made it a den of thieves. The house of prayer comes from Isaiah 56:7. The den of thieves comes from Jeremiah 7:11. Okay, so what does it say? Beiti, what does that mean? It means my house. So bait or bayit means house. Bayit, it's a house. Except in this form, it's bait. Bait, and you see it's repeated. House. The Hirik Yod on the end is my house. Bait, house of prayer. And I'm sorry, it's this bait is house, and then tefillah is prayer. So house of prayer. The first bait is construct. So the of comes out of prayer. House of comes out of the fact that this is in what's called the construct state. So house of prayer. Beit tefillah. So beiti, beit tefillah, my house of prayer, yikareh, it will be called. This is what's called a nifal or N stem. The key characteristics of the N stem is either an N in front, that is a nun, or this is an imperfect tense. Imperfect tense adds kind of letters on the front called performatives to tell you whether the subject is an I or a you or a they, and so forth. The yod here suggests that the author is, or that the subject is a he, or in this case, a house, which is, we think of a house as an it. Hebrew thinks of a house as a he in gender. So that's why you have the he performative, the yod performative. So it's a third masculine singular performative. And with the imperfect, the nun of the nifal often gets sucked into the next letter. Nun assimilates when no vowel separates. So this is an N stem, and that basically means it becomes passive. That's where the B comes from. So the it comes from the yod. The will comes from the yod too, because it's imperfect. B comes from the fact that it's a nifal, and the first letter is doubled. That dot means it's doubled, doubling dagesh forte. And then called from kara, which means to called. So my house, a house of prayer, it will be called. La, for, kol, for all, ha'amim, all the peoples. The hey, kamatz, is the word the. And then is the word for people. And then the im is peoples, the plural ending, masculine plural ending. So the whole verse together says, my house of prayer will be called for all the peoples. And peoples, people groups, nations, it's sometimes translated. The problem with using the word nations is we immediately think nation states, which didn't exist in the ancient world, not in that form. Okay, so that's Isaiah 56:7. What about Jeremiah 7:11, you say? So, the hey patak is the word the. This mem would normally be doubled, but the doubling is dropped because it has a vocal schwa or a schwa under it. It's a silent schwa here. So ham arat. The K, or actually I'm wrong. Oh, forgive me. What did I say that? The hey here is not the article. Beep, 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 reversing. The hey here is a question mark. The hey here makes this a question. And so ma'ar is cave, mahara actually. And then the patak tav makes it construct. So it's cave of. The of comes from the fact that this is construct. So question mark, cave of paritzim, of the thieves, cave of thieves, den of thieves, violent ones, brigands. So is cave of violent ones, and here's the actual word for is, haya, which means he, she, or it was, but we're going to go with is. Question mark, cave of violent ones is the bayit, the house. Now this is the hey patak doubling. This is this hazeh. This is the word for this. So an adjective has to agree with its noun in gender, number, and definiteness. Both of these are masculine. Both of these are singular, and then the hey patak doubling. Both of these are definite. So they agree in gender, number, and definiteness. Question mark. Cave of thieves is this house, asher, that nikra is called. Now, if this up here was imperfect with letters added on the front, this is perfect with letters added on the end, except there aren't any letters added on the end because it's the third masculine singular, which is the base form. But anyway, the nun here is the nifal, a stem. So the nifal that says this is passive, and that's where the is comes from, is called. Shemi, the Hirik Yod is the word my, just like my house. This is my name. Shame, name, my name. And then al is upon, and then the vav is upon it. Technically him, but in English we would say it. So is cave of violent ones is this house that is called my name upon it, in your eyes. So ba means in, ayin means I. The yod, sorry, yod indicates that it's plural, and then kem is the your possessive suffix, y'all's eyes. It's a plural you. So there you have it. A cave of thieves is this house that is called by my name in your eyes. And then up here, of course, my house of prayer will be called for all the peoples. And those are two verses that Jesus splices together, or Mark's Jesus splices together, because different gospels give slightly different quotes, although these two are joined together also in, I believe, both Matthew and Luke. So there you have it, some verses that relate to Monday of Passion Week, where Jesus throws the money changers out of the temple.